to do.
Yeah.
Double crazy not good.
Nope.
Crazy plenty enough now. This world. Yeah, okay. Now we start. Not much shut, right? Sanje chedan soki chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapsunche ragi zungo jipe sonam dola penjre sangendo paraso sanje chedan soki chonam chancho pardo dani kyapsunche ragi zungo jipe sonam ki dola penjre sangendo paraso sanje Chedan soki chonam la, chancho parto dani kyakun. Bage jinso gibe sonam ki, dola penchire sangyen do parasho. Simchen tamche lewa tang, lewe gyu tang, lembara. Simchen tamche dungal tang, dungal ki gyu tang, tawara. Simchen tamche dungal mebe, lewa tang, mindaw. Simchen tamche nyirin chadang, nidang, Panyamla nebara gyurji, simchen tamche dewa tang, devi gyutang dembara. Simchen tamche lunga tang, lunga ji gyutang tawara. Simchen tamche lunga mepe dewa tang, mindawara gyurji. Simchen tam nyirin chadang nidang tawara. Panyamla nebara gyurji, simchen tamche dewa devi gyutang dembara gyurji. Simchen tamche lunga tang, lunga ji gyutang tawara. Simchen tamche dunga mebe dewa dam minda wari kyuchi. Simchen tam nyirin chadang nidang tawe tang nyamla nebara kyuchi. Simchen tamche dewa dewe gyudang dembara kyuchi. Simchen tamche dunga tang dunga gi gyudang tawari. Simchen tamche dunga mebe dewa dam minda wari kyuchi. Simchen Nyirin chadang nidang tawe tang nyamla nebara kyuchi. Simchen tam Dewa dang dewe gyu dang dambara gyuchi. Simchen tamche dungal dang dungal di gyu dang tawa. Simchen tamche dungal mebe dewa dang mindawa. Simchen tamche nyirin chadang nidang ta. Tang nyamla neba gyuchi. Sashvi oji. Choji me do dang. Idam Guru Rana Mendala Kanya Dayani.
Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And by the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. This ground spread with incense, adorned with strewn flowers, Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine as a Buddha land, and by offering it to you, may all living beings enjoy this pure land. Thus, meeting the teachings of the peerless teacher is due to the spiritual mentor's kindness. I dedicate this virtue for all living beings to be cared for by excellent spiritual friends. Iram Guru Radha Mandalakam Niryatayami.
관계 두쟁이 좀와 다와던 제 방배치를 담배치는 던져배 고담대 라자자로 이하다 곰볼 루두기 손도긴 주주텔라 가르송을 제대가라 간지 동다 땡중다 우밀람도 던지베 순조 충반매 바이 상기텔라 차차로 저송레스와 왔다 때 가르세요래 동바당 땡중 세야돼 땡이 답에 우멜람도 던지베 니가 빼 하거나 되는 거죠 음악을 따와 양 따봐 우멜람 양 따봐 때 시그리스 된디 땡인데 다 점물이나 선바상하게 마다 중요 말아 숭나는 초대 답에 숭나는 초대 다 텐데토베나 숭여래 그기 진에 가잘바 텐데링을 삼든 주세대 좀 된데 그 숭야다 간가 타르투나 텐들 하고 했던 달라 숭레다 주분기지 동대 제상 숭조 총반매 바이 상기달라 차살로 제도다 어떻게 아주 윤동 아주 섬당해야 되다 즉 우멜람 세두가라 다 가르고 거래 하장 상부제나 양 다다지온 거 말에 nembachana tatayo mari kima tewajini dos chenene maranzo semdela charachi ini dos chena umil tawade ji chenene maranzo mitin dunlamla ume tawadang joba chewa mebani ta to ngazo nyamlin chede te chadiore chubungiri jidong yingbo te chadiore joba chewa mebazede 니지 고메야래 저 니지 삼당이나 세와 땡땡 놈들이 깨지게 담아 말한서 결혼서 밤아쯤만 용건지 됐다 결혼서 공부를 돼 인도가라 밤아쯤인데도 수수 불음이 배워야 되더라 세와티 급도라 불 토좀 받았는데 삼도 균 땡서와니는 거고 말해 된디가라 세와 닝지 세야 돼 우리 세와 놈이야게 쫓아가고 말해 딩인가 또 미적인 눈남자나 미적 냠는 째야 되더라 뺏게 쳐버려 어따데 좀 된데 그 순근님 보았다 가르쳐야 저기 공부 예리시동 송야도 돈다데 딩이 냠는 째야 딩이 배 저돈 째야 되다
Itsewa mepadang.
tawa tenjungda coba
Tawa tenjungda. And so Nagarjuna said in the text on refutation of objections that whatever is empty and dependent arising is synonymous with the path of the middle way. This is the fundamental teaching of the Buddha. I prostrate to the peerless Buddha. And so in this quote here, what is being said? And what's being said is that if you understand emptiness and you understand dependent arising or interdependence, if you understand these two, then you understand the view of the middle way. And you understand and know now the authentic path. And so actually the only one who has come to our world that has really emphasized this has been the Buddha. There has been no one else. The Buddha has been peerless in bringing this to the forefront of the doctrine. In that way, the Buddha has been supreme. So the Buddha pointed out these two things, emptiness and interdependence. And actually, if you understand both all of the inner workings and doctrine of both interdependence and emptiness, then it's said that you actually understand, you now know the essence of all that the Buddha taught, all of the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha. And therefore, that's why Nagarjuna said here, whatever is empty and dependently arising is the middle way. And this is the fundamental teaching of the unequaled Buddha. I prostrate to this peerless teacher. And so actually one should always keep this understanding of dependent arising, emptiness, the lack of intrinsic inherent nature in one's mind. And this will be a very good practice of the Madhyamaka path, constantly keeping this in one's mind and scrutinizing all that arises. And this is a way that one can bring to purpose this teaching, this Dharma, this understanding of Dharma into one's own life and actually practice the Dharma along with one's activities. And all of the 84,000 teachings are included within both this view, which is again emptiness and interdependence, and as well the conduct of the path, which is the practice of non-harming. And so those of you with children, or those of you that serve as parents, will very, very much understand this practice of non-harming, because non-harming goes hand in hand with a loving attitude. And as parents, one can really understand having this loving attitude and non-harming. This is the very root. This is the essence of all of the Buddhist teachings of conduct, this non-harming. And so if we bring this into our conduct, then we are practicing the path in this very life. And again, holding as well the understanding of emptiness and interdependence. And so then one can actually, based on this, one can take the essence of just what the Buddha taught and bring it into their daily life. So again, the view of interdependence and emptiness, and the conduct of loving kindness and non-harming.
Tendegi tongwa, tende the matuba, dember mat, you'll win yoba, mazu chick pie, chick tie on the gala, nanchi, you'll the crown when you can jigato nangidua. Tinajinji yo marella gore. Tinajinji yo mares. You send the cardana, chile chitenjini, minchang tayo samji, min samji. Zagit pie tana. Any chache tendoyaji, What that means something, that's something, Tendijimado, Tanya, Tendijimado, Yotande, then Yotande, Tendijimado Yomare Lavare. The Pem is wicked, Mazo, Tong Sidilla, Tao, Dode Badan, Senza Marna Jinchene, Chamel Cosona, then Petaka, Tombiton de them Nepal Cosonans, the Cheta Lungro Nyagayore. What that tea, Tanya tea, Hako at the Pemisu Kijo, Tong Sidigala, oh, Martha go around the Nantul Najinji or Mares. Nantul Najinji, Yona, Kasu Chepache the city, Kosaru, Saru, Guarwa, Number Yona, number 2 Yona, Chepachism Chedicity, Ko, Pe, Megan Rodugala, Koran when you never thought the thing you were. Oh, they something water. You want it to Yenamata, to Ramang, Yendeganji, your mares, Tombate, T, Rajing to be Tonwa, you want to be Tonwa, Sutu to be Tonwa, that Tendelico wares, Ton Sidigala. What that? Then in June Sidigala, Jeza Rajing Menayang, Yezade, Minka, Tayon Samji, Tanya Tendi. 자자지기 땅아서 질리지 된전이 민기 텐델스기도 단위 텐델스기도 오다 텐데기 지기답에 저 텐중 동베ton도 로야 텐중 세디가라 오 라징기 두비오 마레 라징기 두비 동마레 세데 로라 차르투비아 텐데버도 삼당고 와레 디니 동바레 세디가라 오 추투 라왕고 두비다 두데 여산시 균이 민두데 따띠 민향 따여 점지 탄인기 텐데지긴 두브레 텐 중으레 세드갈라 따띠게 다다데 차단이가 가거도 와도시네 텐중 동베톤도 로야 동바 텐중 돈도 런도 버도 맞다 삼당 고거래 텐데지 고인 텐데지 하고고에나 테니 즉 라지메베 따와라 간잠지 가르소래 네번이다 가지 간섬 고야 붙여거래 되니나 개와 가르치나 섬로 텐디지게 개와 집에나 개와 또 톱침보 송이 톱에 뢰짐베 다 개와 차거래 아니 녀몽게 녀봉네 로투고래 딘디가라다 녀몽 계세 지메 차거래 오 라진이 마루바 지 섬로 코리온드가라 율무니 요 말에 아니 벤징기 Zembrand zinzuldela 견개병으로 와. Zembrand zinzuldela 견지게 용도가라. 녀몽 계획이 지사되면 그 자와도만선 거르고 와를. 두고 동번도 맞아. 자와고도나 열가들로만 해요 말와. 오다 때선이 차고 와래. 인도가라. 이거서 윤도 삼당 오다 뺀 민수도 깨져 버려.
So here we're speaking about emptiness and dependent arising, interdependence. And when in this term emptiness, it doesn't mean nothingness, but rather what are we speaking about an object being empty of? It's not that it's nothingness, but that it is lacking existence of something. And what is this something that is lacking? What is this object empty of? It is empty of any independence from its own side. It is empty of being exactly the way it looks. It is empty of being self-sufficient and being just what it appears to be. It is empty of being undeceiving, and it is empty of being true and truly existent. And this is opposed to the way that it appears to us. So this is contradictory to the way it appears to us. It appears real. It appears independent. It appears that it is just what it looks like to be. It looks like something to us, but actually it's not that. It is something that has come about and can be traced back to a series of relational experiences, one thing that led to another, that brought it to another, that brought it to another. So reliant on many things, many conditions. And then on top of that, on top of this dependent origination or dependent arising, one thing leading to another, to bring it to that moment in time when it appears to us, not only was all of that occurring, but also then we assign names and fix designations upon it, very subjective designations upon it. And this is the way it comes into being in that way. Assigned, we then assign additional understanding on top of that which appears to us. And we all actually come to the conclusion that this and the common consensus about this object. But it's important that we remember to examine that it's not that way. But rather it is empty of being true, existent, actually the way it appears, etc. And that it is interdependent. And in this way, we're not falling into an extreme of completely denying the appearance and existence of this entity, of this phenomena, but rather understanding all that went into it appearing that way, and really being able to untangle and see through that appearance into what it really is. And so therefore we say it is empty of existing in any natural intrinsic way, but it does conventionally exist. And when this is the case, then we avoid falling into complete denial and into a nihilistic view. Emptiness. Emptiness means it is empty of a certain way of being. Because if it actually existed in the way it appeared to exist, if we were to take that object of our examination and dissect it, then we would see more and more into its beingness, its thatness. It would become clearer and shine through that it is exactly that way in examination. It would become even more clearly that way than upon first glance, but actually that's not the case. We find that we cannot, upon examination, find what we are looking for. And the fact that we cannot really find thatness of the object is the sign that points to the emptiness of what we're looking for. And so we then can understand that what appears before us is appearing before us due to conditions, and conditions that have been supported and are relative, and it is actually empty of any true nature of its from its own side. It is a dependent arising. And so even though it's not independent, and it is dependent, it has come into arising. That's why it's called dependent arising or has dependent connection, we recognize that even though it's not an independent entity, it is a conventional dependent entity, which we have named, which we have nominally assigned meaning. And from this understanding, we know that what dependent arising means is there's no natural true existence in an object. That is the meaning of dependent arising. And emptiness, again, emptiness means that it is not self-sufficient, a truly existent from its own side. It is an assigned convention. And so within these two, understanding its dependent arising, we don't completely deny it, therefore we don't fall into a nihilistic view. And understanding that it is empty of any true intrinsic nature, we then stay away from falling into a view of eternalism or permanence. And if we understand that something is not truly and naturally established, then we really can understand what is meant here by the emptiness of an object. And therefore, holding this understanding of the emptiness of these entities and phenomena while practicing goodness and virtue, actually this goodness and virtue really increases if we go about our virtuous and wholesome conduct, even though we understand, and holding an understanding of this view of emptiness increases the virtues. And also our afflictive emotions, our disturbing and harmful emotions decrease. And why is that? That's because the basis for their arising, the basis for what really drives them and strengthens them, that basis is gone. We understand that there's no true object there. And not only that, our fixation to things as being truly existent is lessened when we no longer have the basis of fixation to objects as true. It's gone. The root of what feeds and drives the negative emotions is gone. And just like when we uproot a plant, when the root of a plant is gone, that which grows from the root no longer grows. And that is the same when we have this view and we have realized that that phenomena are true of intrinsic existence. We have taken away the basis of the negative emotions. And so we should always remember to reflect on this point.
그동안 너서 공단을 뭐지 순지와 다외라진 소외질 많이 봐야 케이크라 지기 민삼 라마르키르스 됐대 뭐네 넘바르다 되기디 양양도 삼는 거죠 제가 다외라진 소외제 라진 짜용데 갈라 맞아 나용데 갈라 율군이 여바지 통고하러 와 제가 율군이 깔깔깔 살린 답에 늘제마 치기 좀 하나 진짜 라야메 자기도 그 율 덴바지메 따빠 띠게 땡땡땡 거와 이 마녀바이 케기르바서 마녀바이 가르케게레 라진기 투바데 케바레 수투투 투바데 케바레 타니도 요바데 미제기 민삼 라마르기르제네 제라 타니도 민삼지 레그레스 타니 삼지 디라 때니요 상대 시거로 뱀미스베 개침으로도 되게 된 거죠. 양양도 삼당과도 뱀미스베 개침으로도. 이지 삼당이나 당가론서 나시 주추비 지 간디지나 디 유릉원이다 매 삼바지 덴덴 덴디 삼코리나 델라 진차당 딜라니베 가르소 뇽몽이 리디케라 고힌 지투자로 게 최소데 아주 귤라 다 뇽몽 가서 충루에게 탑시지레마도 빼면서 개침을 차디어래
아니, 디 군탕 림포체기 식제 양kerchik 소르체.
다베 란신 솔웨치 마녀 바이 케귤라스 마녀 바이 케귤라스 마녀 다신 고민베스다 다지즈데다 에 중이 때는 바비 지디 까그마레 라브레 봄발 까왈로 소바 디 율응원이 매나양 타니 잠지 제기 민잠 라마르교자 타니 잠지 리그레 라레 마녀 다신 고민베 제기 민잠 라마르교 세 빼미스베 깨짐버다 그래서 엄마가 저 땅에 지제 되게 양양도 섬당거든 빼미스베 깨침을 차디요 그래서 섬당에는 에 다카르스 거랑 아주 소수 미진 둘남데 신 단데 도근 리 잠지 마임바 깨와 치마 펜젤라 당아서 에 뇽몽로 타싱네 엔텐데 대화투비하게 에 답람데 미기톤 용거로 마다 진다요 말에 도그다 할게 민다 기다 파파도 전 도근 리즌리도 어러어러서 그런 도근 리즌 누구도 대삼지다 가서 미리 톱에 꽂히고 말아 미스베게 첨버 니게때 삼내 야네양도 당나 펜도 랍진 용거랑 가서 니기 자완디니 수그리
And so always remembering, recalling the nature of reality. This is something that we should always think about. It should just be part of our understanding as we go about in the world. And Guntang Rinpoche said, in searching for essence in the view, it is not found. Not being found, thus it is refuted. Since there is no basis of designation, it follows that what one is left with is mere nominal labels. And so in searching for the essence of the view, it is not found. And so what this means is when we are looking, we always examining the objects we see, always examining what is before us. Is there any essential nature? And we will see actually that when we are really scrutinizing something, we can look at it and examine it, and we will come to see actually that as we peel away the layers and get down actually to the atomic level, that which first appeared is not what's really there. We're down to subatomic levels where that object can no longer be seen. And what that means here is that just what is said here, when it says that since there is no basis of designation, which this means is the emptiness of intrinsic nature is seen. We'll see there's no basis for the designation of the object, that matter that's before us. The emptiness of its intrinsic nature is seen. And we should do that in everything that appears before us, and we will see that those things are not truly existing. And in not finding it, we will see the truth of the reality, that those appearances are not truly there in the way that they appear. And not only that, that subjectively, we have superimposed on that appearance a name, an understanding, a convention, But actually in the object itself, none of that is present. And that's why it is said here, there is no basis of designation. This is something that occurs in our mind. And when we continually scrutinize and examine things, our view of the world as existent is something that we won't find arising anymore. So for example, there's no basis of designation. Our real fixed view of reality will be lessened. So things like vessels and walls and pillars and so forth, they will appear to us, but we will now understand through our constant examination that they're not really there, and what they appear to be in that appearance. And so this is something that if you can make it part of your regular thought process, when you're going about things, it will lessen the grip those appearances have on us. And this will be a benefit in this life, and in the next life. Actually, if we continue to familiarize in this view, this is what brings about eventual and permanent happiness. And so, this is something that we have to employ some effort here. For example, within the animals and so forth wouldn't really be, they can just respond to commands, but they can't put forth the additional changing of the way they regard the world. And this is something that we can do. We can really do this. And this is something that will actually accomplish our happiness.
근데 이거는 다 우마 던규를 따와 라심메벨 따와 세야 되다. 오늘 그 전부 차버래. 좋아. 이거는 다 아주 세야 돼. 다 오늘 더도 따와도 우마 던규의 라심메벨 따와도 차디어래. 근데 이거는 다 너대 바당 선zam바 면제라 라심게 맞으면 저 미시비 루차이요 되가라. 다 그거 선zam바 면제 가르서 라싱이 맞으면 때문에 콘도 거래. 때니 미두 삼바데. 삼로데 차고 라싱이 맞으면 세메자 차즈디 유릉weni 요와데 나진진진바 유릉weni 남바데. 에니비 셰바게티 진치 투스치네 존남단 진남체네 타 투스치네 타 자겨와 도데바기. 오타 도데발서 바테 데조이 덴데 인도가라 타 고조 덴버 맞으면 저 미시비 루데기 당 우마 던규를 따오니 딱 오늘 직 네가 거기 다 가를 따윈 nen가다 하고 이나 어디딱 저번 영상에 지 시기로 와 뒤만 nen가 되면나 뒤 저번 영상에 시기 말아 와 뒤인디가라 딱 아주 너데 바당 우마 던 너데 베다 우마 던규와 라지면나 때문에 고구데 때문에 고나니 그 군솔로서 봐니 배 초소바다 인삼저바다 때니 되게 민두 세대 딱 콘서 접고 용거래 대난다 기능 군솔도 계산 돌니다 니바 초소바 밑에 탈와데 대간 레거래 대마도 맞아 단다 디난 망체 같이 라 접바된 자위 지진이 통구를 망체 접바데 자위 지진 통구마로 와 랜드 마도.
And so now, this is the view of the Prasangika Madhyamakas, the view of emptiness, and dependent arising, and phenomena being existent, but existent in dependence and existent as conventions, mere designations. This is really the ultimate view, the understanding that phenomena have no true intrinsic nature. This is the Prasangika Madhyamaka view. Now, when it comes to the Sautantrikas and the mind-only school, their philosophy on the nature of reality is a little different. Their philosophy is that when they posit something to be non-existent, it is just considered unilaterally and completely non-existent. They unilaterally deny it. They say that there's nothing to talk about. If it's not existent, it is just taken off of the table. It is just completely non-existent. And also, the Sautantrikas speak about the basis of these objects and the mind that connects to these objects. So this relationship, so the mind and objects, and they posit some existence, that there is existence to both of these. But not the Prasangikas. The Prasangikas say that there is a lack of true existence. Things appear, but they lack true existence. This is really the ultimate view. This is this ultimate view of reality comes from the Prasangikas. And so here are the two sides. The Prasangikas say that these things aren't really existent, but there is something to talk about here. They're just not truly existent. And so if you understand the main points, the crucial points of what the all of kind of the existentialist schools, like the mind only down to the Vaibhashikas, posit some existence in objects, some true existence in objects, whereas the Prasangikas do not. They say they appear, but there's no true existence in those appearing objects. If you understand those two major like nutshells of points in these two categories of schools, mind only down and Prasangika Madhyamakas, then you'll understand here in the text that we're studying, the Way of the Bodhisattva, what the debate is, who's debating and what they're debating. If you don't understand the background of what Prasangika view is and what the lower schools, the other schools posit, then it will be hard to understand the points of debate. And so here, the point that we are in the text, the Sautantrika mind only are saying, okay, you Madhyamakans, you Prasangikas, if you're saying that things are relative, and things are only conventions, then these other points are illogical. Then there is no validity to certain things. If you're saying that appearances are only relative, then it is illogical. So what they then posited was that there are 5 points that it is illogical to speak about things when we're talking on a relative basis. And we discussed that earlier. Now we come to the second point, that to accumulate merit and so forth, if things hold no true existence, if they're only conventions, then it is illogical to accumulate merit and virtue and so forth. And so this is important background to be given here, because in the text, the points of debate aren't written. What's being objected to isn't in the text, in this way of the Bodhisattva chapter 9, only the answer to that point, to that objection is given. So it's very, very important to go a little bit into the background. And next we pick up in our text, and we're in chapter 9. We will be getting to in the Padmakara translation, it is the 9th. It is in relation to the 9th verse, I believe, that we're going to be going into, where they object. Then the lower schools object and say it's illogical. Then why bother accumulating merit?
니바 초서바 밑에 바방 바스디 갈라다 저보다 간디시 연구 레스디 갈라 다 도데바 코나 타와달라 라신게 마투나 때멜레 코용디 갈라 오다 다 가서 상길로 소바데도 쳐봤잖아 애니베 그냥 소놈 사야미도 와스 상기서 코 라신면은 코 때네 메와라 와스 들라부거라 저보다 때고거 다 때려야 디 대자 말에스 라브레 땡가고 윤다 야레 소남니 지터 뭐에 라지진스 유마탄라베 타페 렘버메다 덴동 유마타부 아니 상기 쳐나 덴동 유마타비 소남 사그레스 이 갈와요 마레슬라바레 렌데테레 타 디나 렌데마도 마첼 저바데 무스 뜬거 말 가르잖아 숭사데 날렌데 케비킬레 숭도와 날렌데 케바도서 저바 강가 하고 거와 인디 갈페 멘 디레 타 게 첨부 차디요레 타 덴동 주마타부 시디갈라 가르서 거래 딱이 공니샤나네 맞어 나이 오는데 가라 율무니페 추투투 요바나지 난거래 근데 나와데 시니 타페 Juma Sidigala, Karsa, Juma Sidigalang, Nga Zedang, Nga Tang, Zedang, Tendegi Tape, Tulgurwa. Tendegi Tuldeni, Ko Yulmoni Menayang, Tendegi Zegi Dang, Mi Lepadang, any be Nag Nibata Tendation, any Gumelambo, Gumelambolos, any Gume Talanglos, Tadang Lampochedan, Rira Kankin, some. 인지부 통과로 다는 무비다지래다 무비나라다 빈쇼다 되게 강강 좀나 짱강라페 강강 밀려 치치치치치야 위견 서서는 된데 넘겨와 이 제자 그 당이 때점지마다 그런 율문이 용고고 민도 와서라고 근데 당이 점지 에네베 윰 렌송 규말터비 상기 쳐나 렌송 규말터비 소놈 사기리서 렌len게데 렌데 잡고도 와 어떻게 인교?
And so the Vaibhashika middle way say that something isn't truly existent. It's never been existent. It's not there. It's never been there. It will never be there. There's nothing to talk about. So if there's no true existence, there's no Buddha, and there's no merit. So why to exert ourselves in virtue? And so then the Prasangikas answer and respond to that and say, no, it's not like that. There is merit accumulated. There is indeed merit accumulated. It still follows the same principle. Even though there's a lack of true existence, there is still merit accumulated. And so again, all of these words aren't in the verses here in this wisdom chapter. Chapter 9, because remember, these verses were written for the purpose of the other Nalanda scholars who all know all of the fine points, the different points of debate about all of the different, in all of the different dynamics and points and that are contended in regard to existence, true existence, and so forth. And so they answer here that though a Buddha who is but illusion, how does merit spring? As if the Buddha were existing truly. But you ask if beings likewise are illusions. And so, like was said, like Ishila said before, things look real, but they aren't the way they appear. And so in the Prasangika's answer, they say, you know, just as things look real, they are not like that. They are like mirages, just like mirages that can be conjured up through spells and mantras and different special substances. An illusion can be created. If we have the connection of a certain spell or a certain condition and the mind, then images can be conjured up. Images such as elephants and beautiful mountains and plains. For example, just like in a movie, just like what appears upon like the screen of a movie that's projected in a movie, those elephants and mountains and so forth, they appear perfect, just like they're actual and real. And this is because causes and conditions are all present for those images to be perceived. And there's that everything is present, so that connection is conjured, and those illusion-like things appear. And the answer is that, you know, just in the same way, you know, illusion like Buddhas and illusion like merit is accumulated, just like when making real offerings to real Buddhas and so forth.
movie 타디가라 다 movie this 에 이겨야 되지나 이게 서로 최선 이겨야 그 서로한테 되기도 와 movie 데 semne kibuye sorwa tenge movie jina ko yulngone yo marde weekend so yondi gala di sorwa de te ga susule sorwa de te ga niba chadang yonggudo 당에 점지로 왔대 yulngone yo mar 왔다 ko 제가 로나 가르 거기니 양이 빙쇼고는 양이 리지가니 지금은 라고라 제가 너 라야 재미도 제가 당에 때 점지도 와 맞아 이 팀바지 연구도 왔대기 염천부도 왔대
So even though something is illusion-like, mirage-like, it can bring about a result. It can bring something about for us. For example, even when we're seeing a movie, we can really become engrossed in that movie and all of those images and everything that is appearing on that screen. We become so engrossed that it really does become real for us at that moment in a way that we're moved. We really have feelings. We really get into it, even though it's not real. And it's not really there. Those sub images and sub objects in the movie and what's happening, they're not real. We can't reach out and touch them, but they bring us a feeling inside. They move us inside. So even though something isn't real and actual, it has the power to bring about an effect in us. And it really we can see this with the way that we can really feel when we're watching a movie. But then upon examination, or, it might look like a real, mountains and cattle grazing on the mountain. And, we try to reach out and touch it and grasp it. We can't really grasp it. Yet at the time we're making mental contact with it, it does allow us, that mirage, that illusion does allow us to make mental contact in a way that actually we have feelings arise in our mind, even though it's not real. And so that's what the Prasangikas are saying here. Even though there is that these objects are conventions, they still have the power to bring about effects. And so therefore it is not illogical to practice virtue, etc. So again, understanding real, truly existent versus conventionally existent. Yes, there is this difference. There is these two delineations. However, relatively, conventionally, the Buddha does exist. The Buddha exists conventionally, and so conventionally, virtue and accumulation from that virtue exist relatively, conventionally.
풍부 수투도 요한하지 풍부 렘바와지 요한하지 진네 디 왕게 답에 서로와 겸부 쉬우 주어봐 디 ಸಮತಾ이네 디 서로 겸부 매차고 왔다 쉬우지 때 가그래
Ani chik sirpochul masala ani dine dundang dambadang chunigi korla di gakcha de korla yangke chik
렘바스디가라 또 가자 렘바지다 중일라 렘바스디 구구 아레스 렘바스디 과니 요레
Okay.
던담 렘바 중일라 던던 바라그와 엔 단다디 렘바스디가라 가자라꾸니 율라 가자라
Oh, lasso.
가자 렘바와지 요 마레스 고 꼬야데리
Oh, lasso.
빙이 투에요 마르고 중이 셰베 갑도나 오니 다 동일레 셰기 사레스데 삼르데 땅야다 아니 가제가 카둘레데 오딘 가자 뎀바와데 인사레 뎀바와지요 마르즈데 고 삼땅과 또 수용 거라 군이 지지로와 인규 뎀바즈디가라 이나 가톱기 고알렌타데 카가차디로 빼때가 노르닝 마라와 어
And so there was a time, I think Geshe-la said he thinks it was when His Holiness the Dalai Lama was teaching in New York. He was in New York, probably, and teaching on the root verses of the Middle Way. And he was speaking about this very thing, this Buddha, the Tathagata, or the Buddha, finding if the Buddha is truly existent. And His Holiness recited recited this verse in regard to the examination of searching for the Tathagata, the Buddha. And the verse is, he is not the aggregates, he is not other than the aggregates. The aggregates are not in him, he is not in them. The Tathagata does not possess the aggregates. What is the Tathagata, or who is the Tathagata? And so if you look, you actually won't find an individual. You won't find that person, that individual that you're looking for. If you really look, you can't find it. But conventionally, for example, Mark and Mary, we have these names. We label these individual. But if you were to really look for Mark and Mary, would you find them? Actually, you won't. You could look for that Mark or that Mary, and you could really examine, really pull things apart. Where is Mark? Where is Mary? You look and you look and you look, but actually in the end, it's not there. And when upon examination of something, if there really is something to be found, upon examination, it actually just becomes clearer and clearer and more succinct, that thing that you are looking for. But if it's not truly there, when you examine it, you won't find it. And that's because it's not there. It's not truly there. And so we talk about this truth, or truly there. So sometimes the truth refers to real true nature, the real true and ultimate nature, meaning dharmata, that's the truth. But other times this truth, what is truly there, is actually something that is an object of negation. It's something we can't find. It's very, very important not to mix them up. There is the truth, the true abiding nature of dharmata, the ultimate nature, or there is looking for truth in something which is actually when we don't find it, it is something that is negated. It's an object of negation. And so when something is this that there is no truth in it, upon examination, we will lose what we're looking for because it's not there. And then we understand that how does it actually appear? What is the way it actually appears to us? And so we begin to sort these two things out, the way it appears, and then looking to see if that way is really there, if that which we are looking for is really there. So we must examine it. And that's actually what His Holiness was teaching with this verse, examining to see, is it really there or is it not really there? And actually one can insert, rather than searching here for the Tathagata or the Buddha in that verse, one can insert one's own name in the same way that His Holiness says that he does and uses this verse where he says, I am not the aggregates, I am not other than the aggregates are not in me, I am not in them. And then he would insert his own name. Lama Tundrup does not possess the aggregates. Who is Lama Tundrup? And so you can use this verse to really delve deep into looking for yourself, any real existent self in your body, in your aggregates. And use this with your own name. Insert your own name here and do this as a contemplation for about 10 minutes and examine where are you? Are you in your aggregates? Do your aggregates possess you? And really use this over and over again. And actually, this will really bring about a transformation and understanding on a very deep level in your mind of the relation to this idea of a self being in your aggregates.
펜도야 당아서 풍부 딜레 때 자전전에 떼다니 누가나 망부 연구하러 와. 다 풍부 코란데 게 상니 다 세네 라야메데 풍부 코란다는데 직 원에 가르쳐 그래. 직 세네 말아 되가라. 다 닐루세데 다 zu르도 잠바요 말에. 이 어쩌 낭나진지 매와 따가랑 충이 차되어라 와. 그 바저 디승거래. 장교 로베도르지기 장교 아마 당구로 아망은 인생인지. 파르겐 짤네 많이 배 마르겐 코이 만두고 어서 숨으래.
양캐치크스나
파르겐 짤네 많이 봐 마르겐 코이 만두고 어서 파르겐 지디갈라타 가자 덴바와데 가자 덴두데 ता देंटुते पे चेपा दिगाला चेपाचने रागे मरवा मारा दिदा तका रंग पे मार्गन से चुनी देंबा दे ता गाजा देंबा तिदी तोंवाते ते मारा बा तका रंग एनी पे चुनी रिशास नेलुते रिशास सुंगवारे
ती नेलुते ती मागेरे
नेलुते ता चुनी आम तोंगिला 아미밍이다네. 숨으로와. 그 전부도 와.
아니 전파보 수레 건닥져서
장교 롤베더지.
장교.
오만 라마 침부지다. 장교와. 장교 롤베더지.
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 롤베더지. 딩고마디 야워로 체키 콜라. 손페기
마 디 가르쳐 거라잖아. 아주 제바체네 많이 봤대. 아 누구주나 대가랑 충이래 자스.
라소 디
어떻게
Ani dene di page di
다 풍부
that's one la kya warum pocheki kola
어,
tekola songyaki.
다 겨울무지 송해다 따라 가랑도 다디 지드가라 두스네 심지어 지드 집어제나 또 가랑도 풍부를 미네 전차 망부 질레기 어와 그때 전차도 충주고 거라 가지 전차 때 왕게네 즉 서로 동al 망부지 끼고 거라 그때 풍부 내루데 즉 하고에나 되니 되네 전차지 제사단 때문에 매차 거와 펜도 누가 게 내대 아버지 지금이도 돼 깨침버려서 돼 겨울문 숨도
And so this is actually very helpful, that exercise to examine, looking for the truth in one's aggregates, looking for the self. Where is it? And then also examining the aggregates themselves. Very, very helpful exercise. And actually, because it's due to our belief in a self and possessing these aggregates, that our attachments and our aversions develop. It's really, this is the very basis of our suffering. It is really rooted in a belief in a self, in these aggregates, in possessing these aggregates. This is where all of our attachments and aversions come from, and therefore we suffer. But look for your oneself, and you'll see, examine, even examine the aggregates. Does the physical aggregates truly have any true existing nature? Does form have any true existing, this form have any true existing nature and feeling, and so forth? One can do this with the 5 aggregates. And if you look, actually, you won't find any true existence in the aggregates. What will you find? When you find the lack of true existence in the aggregates, what you find is the true existence, this other truth, the true abiding nature, the true nature, the true dharmata nature. That's what one will find. And this was expressed very beautifully in a text by Jakya Ranke Dorje in the text of meeting recognizing my mother, in the text called Recognizing My Mother, where he said, in searching for my father and not finding my father, I find my mother. And that not finding my father itself is finding my mother, is finding the true nature, dharmata. And so here, the father that he is searching for is any true nature, looking for true existence. And here he continues to say, but I don't find any true existence. And the very not finding of true existence is finding the truth, is finding my mother. And so here, my old mother is synonymous with the true abiding nature of reality, of actual dharmata. And so this is really very, very beautiful. Not so when we actually search for true existence the very not finding of true existence in the same moment at that same time when we actually find the true existence is dharmata. And so in knowing the lack of one truth, true existence, one comes to the ultimate truth, the true nature. And so that's what is meant here. And Geshe-la said, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, spoke about this very beautifully. And also in finding this truth, we then cut our suffering, because all of our attachment and aversion comes from a belief in the first truth, that there is true existence. And seeing the real truth, the ultimate truth, we then sever that tie to what brings about our suffering.
Yeah, those mare.
So maybe we take a break here. We take a little break.
Okay, now I'm glad to see that you got there. Okay, now, glad to see you made it.
Thank you.
Did you have any troubles?
No.
It all
No.
worked. Great.
Yeah, I mean, I basically, my apartment is free. Tammy gave me the use of it.
Yeah,
It cost me $68 to fly here on a buddy pass.
yeah. That went okay. Okay, good.
Yeah, no, it's
I
awesome.
was wondering about you the other day. Okay.
No, it was fine. And then just having both COVID shots, I felt really comfortable,
Uh-huh.
pretty comfortable flying, and everybody, was really observing what they should observe. So yeah.
Wonderful.
And American Airlines makes it crystal clear. You will wear your mask or you'll be criminally liable. They'll be
Exactly. And
they're not playing.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm just super grateful to be here and see friends again. And they're having open air AA meetings here,
Mm-hmm.
which is lovely.
Wonderful. We
Yeah.
missed a good couple of days here. It's been beautiful. 60 a day or 60 something. Yeah.
And one of my Dharma friends picked me up from the airport.
Good.
And then Geshe-la?
Oh,
Yeah, Alejandra is back in Mexico now, and what she's doing is renting equipment for people with disabilities, like wheelchairs and oxygen and walkers and things like that they need when they come here to visit. So really good, for tourists. So I'm going to go over to see her. She's on the mainland. She's not on the island.
okay.
So I'm going to go see her.
Say hi.
I will. I
Yeah,
will. Yeah. I may suggest that she come to teachings next Sunday, and also my other friend, Moya.
Okay.
You remember Moya? She was a British woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, she came to the center.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Nothing problem? Traveling?
What?
Traveling, no problem? Okay.
No, not a bit.
Oh,
It was good. It's fine.
you shot vaccine? No.
Yes, I got both of them
Oh, yeah, yeah.
too. So, and then I waited 2 weeks after the second one. And then
Oh,
my friend Tammy, who works for American Airlines, said to me, she has her apartment here that I'm staying in, and she's let me have it for free, no cost. And
yeah, cost they're not free.
yeah,
That too.
and then she gave me a buddy, what's called a buddy pass.
Yeah.
Means you fly really cheap.
Oh,
So I flew here for like $68.
wow.
Yeah, I know.
Free, free, free.
It was hard to say no.
Yeah, yeah.
And just connecting with friends and connecting with the ocean, and it's I'm very fortunate. So Barb, how you doing? No, she's gone, I guess.
Yeah. She gone.
Yeah.
No, I'm back. I'm just kind of walking around. Yeah, I'm fine. Everything's fine. All wonderful.
Good.
Keep mind positively. Everything okay.
Everything is okay.
Yeah. Don't do worry. Worry,
Okay.
then you fall down. Everything.
Well, if you fall down, you get back up, right? Guess you'll.
Yeah, yeah. Don't do worry.
You fall down, you get a better look at the dirt and all the little bugs down there. So, you know, there's always some benefit even falling down. The birds are crazy today.
Huh?
The birds outside, I've started feeding the birds with the bird feeder. They're very happy and they're very noisy. There's
Depend. Motivation. You think
Yeah.
positively. Oh, that nice. Then
It
also
is nice.
everything
It
okay.
is.
You think, oh, this too much. What it? Then
Yeah.
that sensitive making you more unhappy.
I'm not unhappy. Trust that.
Yeah, that way.
So I have my neighbors here have 2 parrots,
Mm.
and they're screeching really loud. And so every once in a while, really, really loud. And so I'm having to work with not finding that unpleasant.
You can learn another language, Gaynell, parrot language.
Yeah. I have a feeling they're not getting enough attention, and they're such
probably.
brilliant animals.
Yeah.
But it's all good.
So is tomorrow's dive going to be the first dive you've done?
No, Tuesday.
Okay. Okay.
Tuesday, yeah. I had to go to my bodega and get my bike and get my dive gear and get a few things for, the house.
Yeah.
And so I always try, when I come here, I always just kind of just ease in. I don't rush around and try to get everything over. It's
Yeah.
kind
That's
of
good.
not the spirit of things. So
Diane, thank you for your doing. Your translation is so and your transmittal is so wonderful,
Yes.
so understandable, actually.
I'm glad you can understand it. I try.
You're doing a great job, dear.
Yeah. I know I definitely don't do it perfectly, and there's some things I miss, but
There's no perfection, so don't worry about it. Good to see you.
good to see you too. Yeah, that the last quote that Geshe-la gave, the recognition of my mother, I think His Holiness taught on that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right. And it was a really beautiful teaching. If you can access it on His Holiness's site, or I think probably His Holiness Facebook, and it's translated into English, right? That was a couple of weeks ago. Correct,
Yeah.
Geshe-la?
That too.
Yeah. I don't think I had heard that text before, but it was really, really beautiful.
Is there a title for the teaching itself?
Yeah, just recognizing my mother, teaching on
Yeah.
recognize.
Changya Amma Tangur.
Yeah, and
Tawin
Lama
Guru.
Zopa,
Yeah, that request.
requested by, yeah, it was requested, it was a teaching requested by Lama Zopa.
Okay.
Composed
And-
by Changya Rolbe Dorji.
Chankya Rukpe Doje.
Yeah. That text name is Changya Amma Tangur.
Okay.
Amma, yeah, mother. Tawa is view. Guru is song.
Oh, Gur. Yeah.
Gur.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like a song of realization. Yeah, the song of the view of meeting my mother, or recognition of my
Oh,
mother. Yeah, the
yeah,
song
yeah.
of the view of recognition of the mother.
Savel Tangur Tep nga Jay Manu. Gaur see the Gaur Muchada Lama Tendigi Mambu Sungura. The Nawan Jadere.
Oh, Lasso. Yeah, Geshe-la said,
Better than Jay Manu.
yeah, he hasn't seen the text himself, but from hearing it spoken by like the root words of spoken by other masters, it's, something that he's, got in his mind, something that he's memorized from just hearing the root verses recited, but has never seen the text.
Diane, will you be translating next Sunday?
I believe so.
Okay. I've got a couple of friends down here that I'm going to invite to join teachings next Sunday.
Oh, nice.
So we'll see
Yeah.
if it works out.
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
So Tawa Quarter Pet Takburwa. Me Mambuja, oh, the Takudu the same Jumche. Dichig Midate. Dichigamar. Taku in that. Kasa Tup Susu Namja the pan is sometime the package chamberta. Jungumidu Gun sometime Mare. The Lelun and Gilipele. Lelo chats Algortini. Umare Ravina Lelo like Kepchul Gore. They have Umare. Lelo cop the Jagor.
So it definitely, all of these points of understanding, of getting to the view, all that's expressed about understanding the view of what, of reality, it's really tricky. It's really tough stuff. And, Geshe-la said that there are some people that just is like, oh man, can't wrap my head around this, just so hard. And they just leave it there and say, I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to figure this out. But actually, that's a form of laziness where, we have some degree of self-deprecation and say, I'm not maybe I'm just not smart enough to figure this stuff out. But actually, that's really something that we shouldn't do, because it's whatever our own mental power and capacity is that we ourselves can do. That's what we really have to press on and work with to try to really get this. Very, very important not to fall into laziness or thinking, being self-deprecating and thinking that, you won't be able to do it.
Gilupelelo la rangen yung mare sea de gilupelelo. Ek kinchig yo mare. Giluna ta tiroa. Ngen jung mare ngen yung mare samtaina jumba legero. Jumna ta susu chik dunga le thare gyuni yo mare. Jumba pongpal mithar la re. Jumbe pongpal mithar. Jumba tegeta 땅아서 가래 가와마도 지 미고와 짱런데 미고와 되게 아주 신디데 치막강가 풍주고 알아. 디게다 디 풍와래 가서 타래요 말을 셈줌 되나? 이거 두비야 고급라고 말와. 저서 뺨미시고 깨침버도 줌베 풍발에 미타르셔야 돼. 줌바 끝이나 지기와 말에. 아, 나이 투바 낸전 아섬섬지 오늘 거래. 가제 뽑아들라 나겔 이민다는 순구도 준주나라 뽑아 뺏게 전버다 가서 뽑아 가자와 간데지지는 뽑아 뺏미시베 깨전버리 뽑아 제디 지제나 군초도 그래
라 가르키
내가 제나 자와 가리나 두 그래
줍 그래
줌주 아마래 줌버 퐁발에 미타르 송래 곰불루루레다 줌베 퐁발에 미타르 송래
미타르 sana 미타르
미 타르그 마르세 미즈 가다르와 타르그 마레스 미타르
미타요 마레
튼투 마레라 가르다 퐁바 그뒤는 다 퐁는 데르마도 미고 짱짱 간 고콜 리에르마도 이거 투비야 데키살에 땐 자와인 라고 말을 하고
And so, within the different kinds of lazinesses, the categories of laziness, there is one category called the laziness of self-defeat, self-deprecation. And that's when we think, oh, I'm never going to get it. I'm not good enough for this. This isn't for me. We become very down about it and just give up. And then we just become dispirited and we give up. And Nagarjuna said, in regards to being dispirited and completely giving up, then to this, we will see no end. And what that means is when we're discouraged and have lost heart and are dispirited, then we're not going to try to do anything. We're going to give up. We're not even going to attempt to orient ourselves to do good things. We'll only be doing non-virtuous things and misdeeds and unwholesome acts and so forth. We'll just give up completely trying to be virtuous. And actually, that'll be our own loss. That'll be our own undoing and our own loss in this life, because we won't ever try to do the right thing. Once we've given up, once we're dispirited and give up, we won't even try to do the right thing. So very, very important that, we don't feel like we have now encountered something that is beyond us, but rather we should be confident and have a confident pride, thinking, I can do this, I will do this, I am completely capable of doing this. Almost a kind of a pride that one can really, I got this. And so it's called pride, but this is not in the negative context. This is more in a confident way, because this confidence provides us the backing that will work to figure it out, that we will really be able to do it. And whenever we have the backing of confidence, of self-confidence, so this is really is the opposite side, not self-deprecation, but self-confidence. Whenever we have this kind of confidence backing our actions, we will accomplish what we set out to do, whatever it is.
When it lepada ngazo lepada gombu lutuk da raja sambara teso lepa chikparwa ngazo lepade chikpaji gombu lutuk lepa thebajini o mare ta ngazo lepade pecho tangsa de mashi barwa kono zo pecho de pe sudu tumba tangre ngazo lepade pecho lopa tangtere tegita ngazo pungu orwa 당문에 개침벌당하죠. 레파데 양이 양도 배 직전에 윤도 수수 셈라 잘하지네. 녀몬 쳐도 있잖아. 아니 그다 너도 매바지 이나 갑돌이 녀몬 가르쳤나티 녀보 때마두디가라 다 직가래나 때마두 그 고갑주나 대체 anything 교배원기 녀몬데 간지 당도 렘바이나 교배원 당달래나 녀바데 충이요래. 님이 못하고 가진 tunjena 아니 녀바데 체요래. 그때 고 건배왕기 맞아 녀몽 때려라고 싶지도 가부 직 얘긴 그거 말에 코페 라부고 말에 장구고 말에 직 건배왕기 깨운 거래. 가야 가버래. 딱 깔래 개와 때나진지 건배왕기 직 장배 쳐디 로콤 나라 얼마 기도 뭐다 간이요마 인서 숨도 야지 좀 보지 말라게 당어서 꼼바땡야 돼 뺏게 좀 버려 그거 줘라 윤도 샘라 잘하잖아 녀몬 쳐대이나 즉 그시 제는 안 교배 관계 에 디제 아니 즉 녀몬라 견도 따야 돼 뺏게 좀 버려 에 개와 집에이나 개와대 정은 주소 차와지 제네 다 모하제 제네 배 개와대 치 컨트롤러 소반 좀 미두바지 모아치디 제나 가와데페 가서 맥나 페샤 세빙나 자가도 나진 차고르다
가능실라?
세빙 에콘나 자가 나진지
Oh, 인지켈라. Saving. Oh, less. Yeah.
손조 빼 템포지거래 여기 세빙 제일 키랑서 해봐도 세빙 컨술팅보다 맞아 이제 요말 텐데 세빙 컨설트 예 기능 가서 다 하고 말아 그래서 방관전데 디가라 디시라 벤저는 도다한테 시기오 말아 왔다 텐데 간저 개와 거디체나 개와들 당봉고니 장주기 셈기 주마섬지 살때 셈기 짐바 장주기 셈 주마섬지 짐바체 다 개와체데 타마다는 모아체나 개와데 피타부 차거래 에네 컨트롤러 소바데 키나 개와데 좀 두고 말해 뭐 맞으면 개자든 좀 두고다 컨트롤단 제당라 소바케나 개 참버래 대종 가서 시구다
So if we look at our own brain, our own capacity for intelligence in this brain, the brain that we have is no different than the brain of Nagarjuna or the Buddha or the other Tathagatas. We all possess the same brain, but the difference is the way we use that brain, the way we use our intelligence, or how much diligence we apply. Or also, we could use that very same brain for misguided or perverted reasons. And so this is what's very, very important to know. We all have the same brain, and we all have the same potential in using this brain. And so we look to make sure that we are really trying as much as we can to always be on the side of positive emotions. And so when we see negative and destructive emotions arise in our mind, and negative thoughts and so forth, we really must look to reverse those. We must apply some kind of remedy so that we modify the internal emotional state. And even if, let's say, we were not able to get ourselves under control and our emotions under control, at least after we need to regret them and feel remorse for this harmful, destructive emotions that overtook us. And, that's very, very important that we either look to reverse them, or at the very least, once we have fallen sway, at least feel bad about it and regret it. And because if we just let them have free rein, then our minds will just become very, very used to this. We'll be very, very used to always being full of negative thoughts and emotions, and it will become a habit. It will become our habit, almost like our autopilot, so to speak. And it's because that falling into negative habits is something that is very, very easy for us. And we don't really need to read up on how to do that. We don't have to train in it. We don't have to try real hard to have a negative emotion. We don't need a teacher to show us how to teach us how to do that. It's just very, very easy for us. And so it's important that we look to reverse them when they do arise, or regret them when they arise. But better still is to really try to stay on the side of goodness, just being very wholesome and good and decent, and really encouraging those kinds of attitudes, those kinds of constructive emotions. And in the same way that we can just so easily go down a wrong road, we can go down a right road and really get used to those habits as well. And as Nagarjuna said, that there is nothing through familiarization that will not become easy. It will not become like second nature. And so we should encourage constructive emotions as far as getting to be second nature. And when negative emotions arise in your mind, then you should really look and see it as a fault, as something that's is really a defect. And that's a very, very important step. And whenever one does have virtuous times and moments and activities and does wholesome things, then one should take that and one should dedicate that virtue. And using dedications is a means of saving that virtue, saving that way, just like we would save in a savings bank and put something aside and save it for later. Because we can really protect and save that virtue, especially when we generate unfabricated bodhicitta, something that is a very unfabricated and genuine bodhicitta, and then enact goodness and have a good and positive conduct. So in the beginning, we arouse a mind of unfabricated altruistic intent. And then we actually then engage in that virtue and that goodness. And afterwards, we remember to save it. We remember to dedicate it. And this is what makes a virtue very, very authentic. And that third step of dedication means that even if we fly off the handle afterwards or at some further point and are angry or have hatred or a strong negative emotion, that virtue previously committed is still protected, it's saved. However, if that third step is not there, if we do not dedicate the virtue, then these moments of hatred and anger will wipe out the balance of our virtue that was saved. So it's very, very important to protect virtue by dedicating it.
가지고 맞았다. 남배 취직한 지기 셈라 뽑았었다. 로아니 이어나 되니 다 분서바 차고래. 뽑아되게 줌바가고래. 줌바 찌때 줌발레베나 셈델레나 이몽 세테 되니 डिप्रेशन लगदा इंजिन वाला इमों से ला तेलेना तापे तक मी पुटन पीने का और जिते माटा ने न्यंबा छाने का होता कि क्यों दुआ ठीक अमेरिका दा यूरोप दा तेंडले इमों द मा दुआ डिप्रेशन होंगे दे ची थिंकन दिंदे याबो रदे तेंडे इमों मंबो जिले के दुआ मी नाला युपेंजर छंबे नाला दुआ 야봉 말다 돼. 그래서 니제 삼다 셈라 뽑아당 또는 그뒤에 주고 와서 수술랭근 자대 그래. 뺏게 전부래. 좀더 내 때ပတ်맞잖아. 개발게요 말다. 때ပတ်맞지 수순도 바래.
라.
좀 된들 때ပတ်맞지 수순도 바래. 대체로 저 우주 영어 수지요 말다. 여름이제 마겹스 가는 거도. 다 세면상에 즉 그러는 세면상에 뽑아 세면상 위키 두비야데 단 되기디 니기 죽은 되기들 다 연에 맨나데 빼미스베 깨치 뭐래.
So as far as having interest in the Buddhist path and confidence in one's own ability to practice that path, that's very, very excellent. It's really such an excellent quality to be interested in the spiritual path and pursue that path with this confidence. So this confident interest. So excellent, because what this does is it protects us from becoming down and dispirited in a way that actually can spiral down. This being dispirited, forlorn can spiral down into depression. We just become very, very dark and depressed. And we see a lot of depression, especially in the Western countries, America and Europe and so forth. And it's interesting because these are the countries, that really are very developed and very wealthy countries where people, have means and, we really have great facilities and so forth. They're very, very developed and rich countries. And yet these are the countries where we see the higher percentages of the mental, of sadness and depression. Even though the people living there have everything they need and really have great surroundings, so all of the outer conditions are very, very excellent, and yet inwardly, mentally, there's a lot of depression. And so we can really look to ward this off by protecting ourselves from becoming dispirited and down. And this is really our responsibility. This is the individual's responsibility to kind of upkeep one's mental standing so that they're uplifted rather than dispirited. That's very, very important. As far as faith in the Buddha, in regard to the Buddha's path and interest and so forth, and confidence in practicing this path, it's not said that one absolutely must have faith in the Buddha, and His Holiness warns or guards against telling people they must have faith in the Buddha. But what's the most important thing that needs to be done is that we need to be upbeat in our mind. We really need to protect our own mental health and happiness and keep that intact. That's the most important thing. And again, we do that by guarding against becoming down and dispirited, but staying uplifted and confident.
야, 당은 좀 순반인 삼저와 밑에 법방 바시 다다 대던도나 갈때 섬진 윤러나 신이 찔다 계제나 다 섬진 유마다 저버서를 지래다 이 가르잖아 다 섬진 시바이나 유마 섬진생인데 다 결혼게 유마다 나바라 강가 덴바르메 바 덴동 유마타 부르라거다 다 섬진 유마 나부지나 다 섬진 신이 양키로 계다 간디지어레스 they love it.
Mm-hmm. And so now we'll move on to this third point. And the third point is in regard to illogical points of mental contact. And so here, this is verse number 9, the end of verse number 9, the last two lines. But you ask, if beings are like illusions, how, when dying, can they take rebirth? So the beginning of that was Buddha, who was but illusion. How does merit spring? As if the Buddha were existing truly. And so the second two lines, but you ask, if beings are like illusions, how, when dying, can they take rebirth? And so the lower schools are saying this, mind-only Sautantrika are saying, well, you're saying sentient beings are illusion-like. And if that's so, how is it when these illusion-like beings, if they are illusion-like, how is it when they die that they then afterwards take birth, are reincarnated?
Tate lende tede, jisi kenam sopadang, disi yuma jumanjur. Yurin samji jiltarna, samjen dembra yuma yin side lenge gawar. Tate karla gawar zana, jisi ta tangi samji ngazo, samjen tangi samji, samjen lesa ayadang yorwa. Ta thome mari badagi, lesa, thome mari bakunelane lesa. Ani nipa niji gele sumban namshi dus jene kendo choyona, ani samjin kewa chima nyingzam jara yungris. Perna yuma, ta yuma kenji yuma tuli yondigala, ko zejigi le zejin gugore, zedige mi le gugore, temo mi tele gugore. Ani ngaze de gugore. Ani korang yuma tuli ala keba gugora. Te sumsona yuma phungsum sobaji tudugudu wasi. 어때 나신 지체네 가라서 당연도 답에 레당 요모 배 토소나 심지겨 치마 레왕게 배 펜지기 레다 레라 펜지기 로 조제기 레즈디 용고아래 다 펜지기 레드 겨 치마라 팡투브레즈 데슨 거아래 유민 좀 지치다나 섬진 덤버 요마인 시드가라 다 겨 토마 메바니 요아데 배 덤바와지 율코랑오니 요바지 tenzawañin marda lagor tate lengke gor tingin jibudwa.
And so in response, then the prasangikas then say the following words, which should be in verse number 10. Let me double check. Yes, it is in verse number 10. As long as the conditions are assembled, illusions likewise will persist and manifest. And so in this answer, the Prasangikas bring us back to the point that it was due to the conditions of ignorance and negative emotions and conditions that sentient beings are brought into samsara. They are brought into samsara based on the power of karma and ignorance. And when the full complement of these conditions are present, then sentient beings arise, sentient beings are born. And just these illusion-like sentient beings are born, even though mirages are illusions, they can also fade and arise. When all of the substances are complete, so in order for an illusion to arise, it needs certain substances, and it needs certain mantras and so forth, and spells and different things to come about. And then these illusions perfectly arise. These illusion-like images perfectly arise because all of the necessary components are complete. And suddenly there you have an appearing illusion. And in the same way, now in the second two lines, why through simply being more protracted should sentient beings be regarded as real? And so in the same way, sentient beings through karma and ignorance have gathered the conditions that have the perpetuating or propelling karma. When they have all of that complete, they will be projected or propelled into the next life, into a reincarnation through projecting karma. Again, that karma that is accumulated through ignorance. And it's not adequate to, so these second lines, di yunrang samgi ni jitarna semchen dekorla sumpe gishla. Yeah, gyunring samgi jitarna.
Semchen zembra mayinza. Ta semchen sinde thoma mebani yomajiji yuninguni yon degen ji chagorwa. Ta dembawaji de yomara asade. Zembar tum degen dembawaji de tensawani yomare se de sungore.
And then in the text, why through simply being more protracted should sentient beings be regarded as more real? And so actually, the Prasangikas say that they should not, even though this cycle has been self-perpetuating since beginningless time for a very long period of time. It doesn't mean that doesn't make it any more or less real. The length of time that the mirage or the illusion-like sentient beings last does not is not what makes them real or unreal.
Yeah, that jamade ngazote jiba giri ki nami mi fa mi de ba fa wade tati jamashena rwa.
Hola, so.
Tirindiran zamja kyanzu tiwa in tiwa dangsta.
And so then the next, so we'll leave it at that point for today. And And so the next time that we meet, we'll speak about the objection of the lower schools that it is nonsensical to apply. So the distinctions of virtue and non-virtue don't really apply if we're talking about things being not truly existent. So we'll speak about that when we meet again. But for now, Geshe-la said there's time for question and answer period if anyone would like to ask a question.
So when we talk about dedicating virtue or saving virtue, is what we're really talking about is creating positive imprints on the mind and creating positive habits of the mind. Or is there something more hidden?
Ani di gewa ngoa che dela ani di ngone pena bakchak saki kolore yamena gomshi ani dene gewa ani gomshi yapo chak yagichado di ngone chene ani dela chele kariore dene di gula bakchak sak
pacha the kadisha gor je degala tangbo gewa ge jimba tame khaptu dela tape le sagorwa le de maso wonge namshi che tuba isi gala jagor pacha de wonge namshi de pacha wuji che wuji de wuji de dinyor pacha la wajete
disciple chumasong
pacha nam tuba isi gala jagor ta pacha jayde ngatu jimbatana dam dambadana tidi sagor
pena kunshila
o kunji dona kunji gala sagorwa kunji mindo ge na tuba isi re tuba isi in number sebe gala jagor pacha tidi jagor ta pacha ja sagyo de ta pacha jane ta ngatu le gala pa photharwa photharde gala ta ngo machena jupa ta control dang jedang den ki on gala kalpatong sabai control geji ji kewa da ne kalpatong sabai gasan jomgri se zonda jinna chundum zola so sungda jimba da chulmlo sabai gasan jomru gres anje sonam ki chod gurbe gaza kanga control jom tu buare 다 이식의 초기 게자지나 된 점도 말해 동인 또벨 따위 징겐기 게자된 점도 보고 말해 제상 뭐잖아 게자된 민점이 답시를 마다 빠자된 물래 내가 레디 사디고나 빠자가는 포차래
Pelcha morang la disciple ani yersare samgado yamana ngato pena o ani samchen tam chela ngoa che ani pena dingone ani kanere kare chene dene di gewa ani machomba di ani gula ani bakchakia posagne ani kare chene di yongi ore di machoma
빠자래 따티 뭐한테 집어이나 가와지 게자다 점이야 될래 손음기 초도 규베 게자된 중국에 다 짐바당 출짐당 땡기 게자여와 띵 종기리 다 뭐하다 고 인지미 심전 탐절 뭐이나 심전 탐절 파에 뭐사두가라 수수 차고 말아 마차다 심전 되게 강갈 뭐샤두가라 강갈 왕사라 강갈 왕두가라 디 맞아 수소 콘도케나 데 좀 두고 말해
okay naso disciple
간지 맞아 뭐 참고 숨래 상기 템바 유린도 네랑 원한디 거래 and Sinjin Tamjalongon and Digore, Rang Tinjin Zavelama and Pe, Kuzi Japethia, Kibutamba to Zukuja Japethia, the Tenicon and Digore, Karjin one Digora. The Kaji Mango Zashaina, the Musha de Gola me treasure, Penekanon Gumujayana, Gumujan and Ngopju Jambajiltation, Susi the Ngopju, Pechatanga Ragmarwa, Pajal Tetarawa. What the same thing is Jelan was at the Gala, Susu Wangi Omare. The
Dene kari chene, dene kandres, ani sungiore, pena ani ngoa chena, gewa di, getsa di, ngoa chena, dene kandres, ani sungiore. Kandres, ani maupala, ani lunglangna, dene chungi yomare.
Oh, Chungo.
Kandres, kari chene.
Chazon gets out of the Jelan water, run the tie on Marwa.
Oh, lasso, culture dere. So, actually, the point of planting that karmic imprint, accumulating that karmic imprint comes at the time of the virtue. So let's say, for example, we're practicing generosity. At the time that you are actually giving and practicing that generosity, that's the period where the karmic imprint happens, when one is practicing the actual activity of virtue. One is accomplishing the virtue. And then that virtuous karma, that imprint is planted in either, there are some that posit it's planted or stored in the alaya consciousness, or some that say that it's planted in that mental consciousness, that sixth consciousness, the mental consciousness. But in either case, that's when a karmic imprint happens that is related to this karma. So it's planted, it's imprinted. And then we also should understand that there are two kinds of accumulation. So that would be an accumulation of merit if one were practicing generosity. So there's an accumulation of merit there. It's a meritorious action. Now, if one were to not dedicate it, and one were to be angry and hateful and have a really strong negative emotion arise in the mind stream, it wipes it out. It nullifies it. An accumulation of merit. If it were an accumulation of wisdom, those are secure. That would not eliminate an accumulation of wisdom. And so what's happening when we say the dedication, for example, may this merit bring about the benefit of all. I dedicate this merit for the purpose of all sentient beings. Dedicating it means we're giving it away. We've given it to someone else to benefit from. May any merit, that any goodness that just came of my action, I give it to others. It's this giving it away and not keeping it for oneself that protects the merit. That's what's happening. That's the process of why it's protected, because you've taken it and placed it somewhere else in an altruistic way where it can be protected.
Dibulo mare paase de sungudwa.
Drebulama.
Lendan dibulo mare baji samudang gores.
Ni
ni be dije bayina nga ming chambo chagre nga yugu pe dibu yabuji gigir mili togure sangi gir samudang ina di ranchinzi nde ngudwa de chungdu gore. Jeno ngosha dugala pet dibulo mare baji chindugala. But the Gazate, she was top chill, the young Sambujdua.
Mhm.
ngay samdana rangla mataga insan tigirita ngo chartugala soso tago mare di yang pejen de salvo yo wadang thongma sonda ta ripe samdana tere.
And so the way Geshe-la thinks about this and what he believes is really behind what's happening here is that it's no longer something you kept for yourself. And that's why it cannot be destroyed. You have offered it to all others. You have given it and dedicated it to all others.
You know, gumung ngabji gayona ngabji di michile mijemba lete sarana ta kyo yoade ngabju madale yo marwa ngabju du kumi kere nyenga yorwa ngabju di kirmarwa kere yo marwa kiran ta yo marwa mijenda la yorwa.
So once you give someone, let's say you have $50 and you give it to someone else. And so now no one can come and steal it away from you. You don't have it anymore. So no one can come and steal it away from you. And also in the same way, this is connected to the point that we often speak about is when doing virtue, whenever we do a good deed, we should always, or we should not do it with the wish for a karmic fruition or return of any kind, to try to get something in return. We don't do something good in order to get something good in return. And it's very, very important, because if we do something positive, but it's mixed with the wish to get recognized for it, to get something back later on, you know, that someone will do something back, you know, for you, some kind of return. Whenever it's mixed with that, then it's not truly, you know, that's mixed with self-interest. And so when it's mixed with self-interest, that's something we possess. So here we're giving away our roots of virtue. And Geshe-la also mentioned earlier that we can dedicate things, we could dedicate meritorious actions and any merit towards sentient beings. We could also dedicate it towards, for the purpose of the Buddha's dharmas to spread and last long. And we could also dedicate our merit for the purpose of our root lama, for example, for our spiritual teacher. So there are different objects that we can dedicate to. But basically, it's something that we now free ourselves from any self-interest, and now may someone else possess and benefit from this merit. And that's Geshe-la's thinking. He says he has not seen that explicitly in the text, but that is his understanding.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else have?
당하다 체가래 견원수 당매전에 걸 죽었다는 땅이야.
So
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
The question I have is the idea of guarding, constantly being aware of your emotions and guarding yourself from negative emotions. How? So the idea is that you can cultivate a positive emotion, and when a negative emotion arises, you become aware of it, and you try and make it stop in whatever way you try and put a positive spin on it. So if that is the goal, if it's possible to cultivate positive thinking or positive emotions, and then decrease the amount of negative emotions, and so with that idea in mind, I was just curious. This is my question for Geshe-la is because he practices this and has done this his whole life, and this idea is something new to me. The realization that it's possible to actually cultivate good thoughts in your mind, and I was just curious for Geshe-la, how long has he ever tried to pay attention to how long he can go without having a negative thought? Is it in terms of an hour or a half a day or a day? Or I'm just curious for somebody who has practiced their life in cultivating positive emotions, and how long has Geshe-la ever tried to see how long he has been able to go without generating a negative thought?
아니 남균 디 gomtri nangla ani di songdo pana di semgi lakpechala ani pelgore kana kyungi cha di nyunglu tangore di lakpecha mangru tangore kerang rangi nyomyong la pena semgi nyomong mepe togne kandres yunring le de tupki yona kerang yona
대다 나랑 그냥 왜
Rere. Namgyun sana
그때를
kerang ani pana dene kerang di churgi gom tang dang gom tri pe yapo kengi yotsang pelcher kerang ngone ani yapo kengi yogere setsang kerangi nyom la ani kandras yunring le nyomong me petone de topki yona namgyun shana
지난 나 준딩을 나 준딩을 나 축부장이다 미배 축부야래 미야 말에 거저랑 보시나
lasso
다 나지 장 나지 젠라 셰 디치디갈 거저 디치디갈라 수생냠는지도 안 유로왔던 누구도 와 이랬다 아마 달라다 빼 nga chundi kana mi yabo jida ke mare mama kale mang bote kyo mi chire
lasso
kacha jang boshina
lasso ani tengsang ani kerang ani two part chena ani nyomong mepe tonge yunung lo de
yomo mepa zana khabore ngazo
lasso
yomo kigiri de ngama na jin tene pe dide yongmido 배트가 매 차다 가버려니까 가로 록 가서 토마 매버는 꼼바슈 좀 보여라 와 요게 레라고 싶으러 차다 대나네 차도 예당생디 깨라 레라고 싶어도 니나양 그 문진 두고다 따나 어떤 리그민도 선삼지 삼라노 코르투고도 아니 군진데도 셈랑 오늘 군진데도 시다 중루고도 왔대 벤도도 와 그 견도 따위나 편도 시작 이거보다 계속 담바 자티 냠용부터는 랍두야 소리지래다.
So Geshe-la says if he really speaks honestly, when he was younger, he was kind of rough around the edges and not so nice, really. Had a lot of, things arising and so forth, and wasn't always, so nice to be around. But that's when, he was younger, just kind of his natural, the way his nature was at an earlier time in his life. But, nowadays, if Geshe-la said, if I speak about nowadays, negative emotions, they still arise. Actually, to come to a point where no negative emotions arise is very, very rare. They do still arise, but not as often and not like before. But he doesn't experience a point where negative emotions don't arise at all. Actually, among all the different kinds of negative emotions, there are certain emotions that just for us in general are more common to arise, and those are anger and jealousy. But what is different now, Geshe-la says, is he can recognize when they have arisen, and he can point them out to himself, and really understand when a negative emotion has arisen. But what's really important, and what has come along with time and with experience, is to not hold on to things, to not be spiteful and vengeful, and really hold on to these feelings and emotions.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, the pet super.
Pena di longpa gi kolore, amena di shika gi kolore.
Shika.
Oh, lasso. Yeah. And so Geshe-la says, really, it's very, very true. Especially when you think about the place that they, were raised and like that area, people really have kind of a rough character. That's the way they are. That's kind of their natural disposition, is to be very kind of wild and rough, not so civil necessarily. And so that was just the natural disposition.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
자장아도 녀몽라 견도타네 루스제나 칼레 문진 투나 녀몽 충루기 바다 개치게 담바래 타코 녀몽 생데 lui 게나 녀몽 게야지 요래 타코 디 lui 냐면데라 양 녀몽데 슈충지 누구르데
Pena lui 냠뇽 sana.
lui 게디가라타 녀몽 슈충 로야지 요라 lui 차니
Pena.
여기라 녀몽데 양배 게게 렐라 차고래 리라 톱냠바이나 녀몽 슈충르지 차고래 텔레짱 문진 톰나 텔레짱 녀몽 슈충르리
Lasso paycheck shagna lui
lui 게베 갑라 테나 제나도 디 아메리칸 도아 ten 로총아 주루 레디가라 미세타 샤고도 테네
lasso. Lasso.
디디 lui 톱 기거와
Lasso.
차당 헬기어래
Ri.
ताती ता खुद तेरी दे लीक पगे गेंगो छाजदे यान छादां दे छुछुरी को जिनरोया जियर दे लीगी जिरवा सेमे सांनी न्योमोल क्योंदुल ताने दिचबेना तेले क्या छुछे यारे दी क्योंदु थोइना ली जेबे कब्दुला छादां देला गोसुं चितु करता the
So placing fault on negative emotion, really learning to identify it, see the fault in it, see the harm in it, and learning to identify it is very, very important. And so there are different times in the cycles of our lives where we will be more emotional than others. And for example, when we're young, we could look at, for example, puberty and teenage time, where there are hormones and all kinds of things happening, and where kids are growing and changing, is a time, a very, very emotional time, a time where naturally, because of the physical environment, the physical environment, things tend to get worked up more so than other times of life. For example, when people are elderly, the energies, this kind of an energy naturally subsides, and there's less like strong desire and aversion and so forth. Things smooth out a little bit. So different times of life can be very tumultuous emotionally. But whatever stage of life one finds oneself in with negative emotions in the mind, it's really throwing the cold water of recognizing them and seeing them as a fault that calms them, that calms that boiling water down. And it really does act to help with lessening the negative emotions in the mind at whatever stage of life, if we remember to recognize them and place fault on them. Because this is really a way of protecting ourselves against strong emotional outflows. So we must really see the problem with negative emotion, destructive emotion.
견도 통이나 다 텔리강 야그리 다데 루게임 견도 타이네 루게 마게다 데네 대화 매체네 놈은 코나라 견도 타디지 제디가라 가티나 셈라 짜라지네 셈라 텐시테야 오 디 레그 텔레이나 라신기타 셈들와네 대화라 셈들와네 대화 렌즈 중도아 딱 오네 셈 또또 셈기탕네 데다 Vicky in the same time to be at the package. She thinking Kazo in a seminar pay Chadam Musumgi new call the Yana, Kibusi the only junior. Seminar Choshi Abo Jene, Choshi Kunji Chubu in Lavre. Choshi Kunjan Chubu ins, Choshi by Yana Karina Tandi do or than Chupu Chagore. The mother billion na cho machine pangona reda tontalam billion bengna yor the pichotane rayo rago matat serni pa dam dene en shigalagate milojel tayara kabure any tagare tini judi varada karsorta nambi junjena ti penjor de duguchela Deepa Mabu side, they deep in the Mindicani, that part of the tongue. Young digging do the Rungal Mambuji, Chagora. Then they said that when Cindy Maranzo 7th on a Revetola, Caso Cachoya, they were compelled to town. Miguel Kundutane, shoot Chaya the peck kitchen. Package mortati. This say Lama Yovade. Similar the Kijana, we then those Tangrud Yungrua. Tanan Dr. Keba the Zoge me bear ranchins in Shu Chumbo, Yendeng in Jidan, ranchins in Shu Chunju Yogeni, Nasa Chipananaya, ranchins in Shu Chumbo Yogana, Nasa de Kagadang, Shu. 가서 충이 요건데라 나자타 알레란도 중도 이 여름 중도 여름 제다 doctor recommend that 용구도 doctor that lagidu the 여름 중도 야 누초바 아메리칸 doctor 제다
And so we must really learn to look and focus mostly on the interior, on the mental landscape, and really look to modify what is happening internally with the mind. And what is said that if we can tame or pacify our mind, then we will be happy. Actually, a tame mind is synonymous with happiness, a mind at peace. And actually, this is the most important accomplishment that we can make in this life. There is no greater accomplishment than to be able to be happy. And you can really think about the time when you're in the throes of burning desire or hatred, or just feeling really dark and confused, there's no happiness in those places. And like it's said, there's kind of this saying in Buddhism that says, if you find contentment, this is the same as being wealthy. And that you could perhaps be a billionaire, have $1 billion, but because you have no contentment, you're a billionaire, but like a pauper. And so actually, there is a lot of negativity that can come from placing a focus on gaining wealth due to many of the unwholesome acts and negativities that come about being focused in a material way. And then it's because there are a lot of negative results that come with the accumulation of money, and one would need to experience those negative results just for the sake of accumulating, massing wealth. And so in this life, the most important thing that one can do is to be mentally positive and be truly, truly happy, really be working on the interior landscape to be mentally positive and to really try to separate oneself from being negative and disturbed and afflicted. And because this will really benefit you. And even modern day medical science, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama speaks about specific examples of talking to American doctors who have told him that they can have 2 patients afflicted with the same illness. But for a person who has the kind of a psychology or personality who's very, very strong ego grasping, they suffer more, and it's much harder for them to recover from the same illness when someone who has acceptance and doesn't have a strong ego or sense of self and really taking it very, very personally, someone who's not taking it very personally, they're able to recover and they don't suffer as much as someone who is really taken this hard and very personal and so forth.
Ra dewa ndöngin de la zungal mang jen dewa ndöngin de any that sangi ko phang tu bia te dewen di bu nyoya te ni chag do te tonta te le do ta di amji gi sungyo de dang chum junju sungyo nin rabon rabor do si gi lab tha ma da jir ma do tonta la ripe And
so also here in the Way of the Bodhisattva, it says that all happiness without exception comes from focusing on the aims of others, or all suffering.
Karsa chunju de dungal malu daden dolin jungs zo besangi jempen semne tungs
where it says that all suffering without exception has come from seeking for one's own happiness, where all of the perfect Buddhas were born from the wish to help others. And so actually, if you use some intelligence and reasoning, you can see that these lines from the Way of the Bodhisattva and what the empirical evidence of of modern day medical science, what the doctors are saying. If you look closely, actually, you'll see that the meaning of these two are one and the same.
Kemai ba chunju na didwa yadang nishu sepke sergu sumju te zostadang penging jebudwa
Di liu kachula?
liu guba something liu
Oh, lasso.
jiten dewa chingye pat tegun jenden dolin jungs jiten dungal chingye pat tegun daden dolin jungs manto shen chi chibarang ke tonje ta thwa jeng ki tonje dini ke ni khabar to ye sungdwa liu guba yadang nishu sepke sergu sumju dere Rade jengi dunga ku yanda jabar magyuna sangi ni tu mitu je khoi na
Gupa yamena liu ani gepa, something liu gepa.
something liu
Liu gepa
oh
Okay,
gupa de ngai ngenorgo ta
lasso ke amare. Dene ani sikche katsu?
yadang ni sepke sergu sumju
So I'm looking up a certain
jiten dewa chingye pa tegun daden dolin jungs jiten dungal ching jiten dewa chingye pa tegun jenden dolin jungs jiten dungal chingye pa tegun daden dolin jungs dungal kande china jiten na pa dungal kande na da dewan dobel di kenjene ran chinjin da zembar zeme zenzin ni pe going from capture on the gala dungal shaji tegde lagorta yani jen jebar dunne jen la pento chotro che dus chena dewa gi tope dewa kangateli chungres.
So now what's the difference whether we focus on ourselves or we focus on others? You know, what in what comes of the difference here? And actually this was said in an earlier verse in the chapter on meditation, on concentration, where it says that all the joy the world contains has come through wishing happiness for others. All the misery the world contains has come through wanting pleasure for oneself. Is there need for lengthy explanation? Childish beings look out for themselves while Buddhas labor for the good of others. See the difference that divides them. And so here we can really see the difference here.
Di sholoko sumde ngone yani yanda samtangwa
Oh, sumrbe, oh, nima tok ani, oh,
Rade jengi dunga yanda jepar magyunas rangi ta tanda jinjin che de ta pa jinjin machina jabu malo yena rade jengi dunga ku yanda jepar magyuna sangi kindu mitu chir khona dewa mes
oh lasso, yeah.
Te machi ba yena jinde tengi che de pe chanchu ki sem ke di chi machi na sangi trubya khona yo maras te matum na kare khin yor ke khin min do oh korona dewa gyun yo mar da kram korona lui de grese sungore korona ya dewa mes chito sungudo
And so this really culminates here in a third verse where it says, if I do not give away my happiness for others' pain, enlightenment will never be attained. And even in samsara, joy will fly away from me. So if we don't turn our focus away from ourselves and towards others, we will not be free from samsara, and we will not gain enlightenment. There is just no other way. And even while in samsara, we will not find any happiness. It will all be lost. And so for those that would like to look at these verses, they are in chapter 8. And in my translation, in this is verses 129, let me just see again.
29.
Yeah, 29, 30, 31. 100, 29, 30, 31.
Te captain de la dote bagner jane di ore 그러와 갑기 때문에 내와 나면 요마 인저 승도 따뜻 개변들이다. 그러와 갑기 때문에 그런 데도 갑 때문에 내 나진지레마도 내와 생도 끝이네 요 말을 맞아 내와 뭐야 돼 가서 룽알 가린 게 내와 뭔 섬지요. 나한테 룽알 진 가용들가라 기분이지 서로마도 뭐는 저런데 기분이야 자지 서로 대화를마다 자직이 서로 대화를마다 서로 대화 차이요 말이.
So also there is another scriptural quotation that really backs up the meaning of this, where it says that perched atop the sharp needle of samsara, no comfort and happiness can be found. And so samsara, a cyclic existence, is likened to being on the very sharp tip of a sharp needle, where there is experience of suffering. And even in samsara, when we have experiences that feel like happiness, they feel good, it is still contaminated happiness. It is still not the actual happiness. And in contaminated, actually within contaminated pleasure, we will find no true happiness. So now we'll finish there for today and do our dedication prayers.
전주 섬초 림보체 마케 파나 긴규르지 개와 냠바 메바에 고네 공도 배워라서 가리라웨 거르웨 진감대 펜다데와 말린 중에네 제레지원 땡진가 샤베시 데바도 땡규르지 잠불 파웨 진다라켄 바동 군도 좀보테야 대다 군게지소 달로지 배완데다 단제 라도모 뜻숨셰비 야와단 간라 초동아 바나 라진게 싸원데 잠보 주치라도 와라기.
Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. In the land encircled by snow-white mountains, the source of all happiness and benefit flows in your person, Chenra Zig Tenzin Gyatso. Remain until samsara ends. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience and Samantabhadra too, so now I dedicate these merits to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme, so now I too dedicate these sources of my merit for all beings to perfect good actions.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Diane.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Nice to see everyone. Thank you for being patient, Geshe-la.
Thank you. No problem for me. Okay.
Okay, see everyone next time.
Thank you, everybody.